pray for Iran, pray for the designs of the Jews to fail. That's all we could do. Iran is fighting for the whole world right now. And don't get me wrong, I'm not praying for more casualties. I want that to stop. I want the United States to be finished. But Iran right now is fighting for all of humanity. They really are. In a way, they're fighting for us. Because if Iran falls, it means Israel controls the entire Middle East. And the power that Iran exercises over the Strait, over the Red Sea, that's what Israel wants. That's what Israel's playing for. They want that power over our government. They want that power over the Gulf. They want that power over all the trade, all the commerce, all the supply chains, everything that goes through the Middle East. They want all of it. And never forget, they are a nuclear-armed intelligence superpower with a fifth column in the United States, Europe, Russia. Increasingly, they're spreading their tentacles even into Asia. If Iran can't shut them down, nobody can. Trump can't or won't. The United States can't. Russia can't. Europe can't. It is literally Iran, a country that has turned itself into a fortress for this eventuality. They're fighting for all of us. Iran is fighting for all the Goyim. Make no mistake about it. If we, the United States, were challenging Israel the way Iran is, they would be murdering us too. They'd be bombing our schools. They'd be assassinating our leaders. They'd be killing our soldiers. They'd be doing the same thing. Everyone that stands in their way, they give the Gaza treatment. Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Iran. It's not Iran they're after. Israel is after you. Iran is just in the way. Never forget that. Israel is not after Iran and the Ayatollah. Israel is after you. It's just Iran that is in the way. So say some prayers for the Islamic Republic of Iran. We don't agree on everything, but we agree on one thing. The Zionist occupation regime has to be stopped. And that's enough for me. They're fighting for all the marbles out there. Anyway.
Now, Nick is going very viral for obvious reasons, saying to pray for Iran. Everyone's saying it's coming off as un-American, that he's against America. And I get it. Look, I do think he's clip farming. I don't think he's serious as saying like he's team Iran in that sense. What it boils down to is that we don't want American troops over there risking their lives for a foreign country. The whole goal of Israel is regime change in Iran. Because let's be real, controversial take, I know a lot of you guys may not agree with me, but Iran never had a real imminent threat towards the United States, okay?
And Trump is not only saying that negotiations are underway, he's saying that they're pleading for negotiations and that they've already agreed. So that's not true. At the same time, he's extending his own deadline over and over. Well, if he was really looking for an exit, if he was really bored with the fighting, interested in other priorities, if he was really going to walk away without opening the strait, why wouldn't he have walked away yesterday? If the deadline was on Friday, why would he not have walked away this weekend? Why wait for another week of economic pain? Why wait another week of an energy crunch? Why would he wait another week if there's no peace process underway? If Iran is not becoming more compliant because they're not really under pressure, why not just cut our losses now? It doesn't make sense because this is what is being telegraphed and signaled by the White House. They say Trump is bored. He wants to move on to Cuba. He wants to do something else. They're saying he wants the war only to go on for 5 weeks and not any longer. He's ready to move on after the Strait of Hormuz. He's frustrated. He realizes that we're not going to topple the regime. Really? So why did the deadline get extended? Why did we not call the quits and we're just going to suffer another week? Why? There is no peace process. We're not talking to the Iranians. All that it would profit us to extend the war one more week arbitrarily is it's going to make oil cost more. And it's going to cost everything cost more in the long run. So if something doesn't add up, it means that something else is happening behind the scenes. And I think it's very clear that the peace talks are a sham. And to the extent that you're reading about these things in the media, this is meant to reassure the markets. And it's also meant to signal to the other allies that maybe they should help. I think that's been the strategy for the past week and a half. Even to the extent that Trump says we're going to bomb their oil, that would have the same effect as letting the Strait of Hormuz remain closed. If Trump says he's going to bomb Iran's energy sector, that ultimately has a worse effect than leaving the Strait of Hormuz in the hands of Tehran, at least for Asia, and then secondarily for Europe. So that's just as much of a threat against Tehran as it is for all those other countries. And that type of messaging has simply not stopped since those countries refused to assist. Trump recognized he got trapped, called for help from his allies. Embarrassingly, they rejected him. And ever since then, Trump has been threatening Iran, but also all of them. We're going to hurt your long-term energy prices and supply by bombing Iran, letting them bomb the Gulf, and leaving the Strait of Hormuz in their control. In the meantime, he's been hedging now, or rather, I should say, everything has now become about opening up the strait, open it up or else, only for him today and his State Department and White House to start telegraphing, actually, we don't need the strait. Well, if we don't need the strait, then why are we waiting on them to make a deal to open it? And if we're willing to bomb Iran's energy, then why haven't we done it yet? And if we could open up the strait without our allies, then why do we still keep begging them for help? Well, the answer is it's all a farce. This is all classic Trump. He is bluffing against Iran. He's bluffing against the Gulf. He's bluffing against Asia, and he's bluffing against Europe. Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain, they all want Iran to get hit more before we leave. Trump is telling them, well, if you want to hit Iran more, then why don't you help? And these Asian and European countries, they want to make a deal. Trump is telling them, if you want the strait open so badly, then you need to help. And he's telling Iran, if you don't want us to actually visit destruction upon your country, then you should just cut us a deal. But he's creating options for himself. And if none of these come through, or to whatever extent help is contributed, Trump is preparing for a ground incursion in Iran. And that seems to be the ultimate play. How are we going to exit without giving Iran the strait, exit without losing our deterrence and our credibility and legitimacy? It is by winning a decisive battle against Iran, taking hostage something they can't live without, and that's Karg Island, or it's an attempt to reopen the strait through military force. And I continue to believe that until that happens, it's about as transparent as it can get, which is that they're buying time, leveraging allies as they prepare all the way to retake those islands unilaterally with this Marine force, reinforce it with the paratroopers, and then ground forces from the rest of the infantry. I think that's the play.
Yeah, I do agree with Nick right here, and it's especially pathetic considering that Trump said this war, he acts like this war is over, that if it was so easy to open up the strait, he would have done it already. He would have bombed their energies, would have took Karg Island. Personally, this is my opinion. I think the fact that we picked up the Venezuela president so easy, it built up Trump's confidence where he could do anything he wants all over the world, that no one could stop him and he could get what he wants. Iran is way more capable than Venezuela. It's not going to be easy. There's still a lot of, as previously stated, even if we do take Karg Island, it's not as easy as it sounds. There's drones. It's their home court, okay? There's gonna be American casualties at the end of the day.
And so it comes down to credibility. The Trump playbook is the maximalist demand, the ultimatum, the deadline. We have all the cards. You don't have the cards. We're going to dictate the terms. We're the United States every single time. And then Trump always chickens out. And you see it every single time. It happened with Greenland. We have to have Greenland. We're going to take it. And then NATO put troops there, made some threats, and he totally backed down. We got nothing. And Trump did it with China in the trade war. On Liberation Day, when Trump announced the tariffs, he said if China puts retaliatory tariffs on our goods, then we're going to raise the tariff to 100%. And China did. And then we raised it to 200%, and China reciprocated. And then Washington was begging Beijing to come to the table and make a deal, begging them, while they were telling the media that China was asking us for relief, which they weren't. He did it with Russia. He told Putin, you have 30 days, you have 2 weeks, you have 10 days. And then when Putin didn't meet the deadline, Trump said, never mind, we're having productive talks and we're just going to cut him some slack. We're just going to give him a break anyway. Literally every single time with Russia, with China, with Greenland, with all of these countries, this is a person with no credibility. This is what eroding deterrence really looks like. And fundamentally, it's about overexpansion. The United States is still unquestionably a first-tier great power. China is not on our level. Russia is not on our level. But we are no longer a hyperpower. We are no longer a global hegemon. We cannot pressure Russia to do what we want them to do. We can't pressure China. And increasingly, we can't even pressure these middle powers effectively. North Korea, Iran, we've really done as much as we can do to them. Maximum pressure sanctions, but if they have a nuclear arsenal, a strategic weapon in the case of North Korea, or if they have a conventional arsenal of strategic weapons like Iran, there is little in the way of military action that we can even do. So this is overestimating our capability. This is overextension. We're writing checks that we can't cash. It doesn't mean that we're not a powerful nation. It doesn't mean we don't have leverage. It doesn't mean that that leverage is not powerful to persuade or leverage other countries to do what we want them to do. But what we're seeing in Ukraine and Iran is the true limits of U.S. force projection. We can't retake Crimea and the Donbass. We can't prevent Iran from closing the Strait of Hormuz. We can't achieve regime change. We just simply can't. And so promising to do all these things and then not being able to do them, every time that happens, it erodes deterrence. It erodes U.S. credibility. And increasingly, people are starting to look at America as a paper tiger that cannot really and truly follow through on its threats, that is not that superpower that took down Saddam Hussein with shock and awe, that was able to push other countries around like it did in the 10 years after the Cold War. And this is being undone, ironically, by Trump. It was the Democrats that had a doctrine of smart power, using our power in a restrained way, in a tactical way for limited objectives, using it to achieve diplomacy when possible. It is under the Trump doctrine, overestimating and overextending our capabilities, that now people are starting to see the true limits. And we're able to get away with a lot less.
I think a lot of loyal MAGA supporters have to have the uncomfortable conversation with themselves and look in the mirror. I hate to say it, they really do. They have to look in the mirror and actually say that Trump is not doing everything that he promised. It's true. He said he was going to do certain things and he folded. At first glance, it did seem like he was putting his foot down and being very intimidated to China when it comes to tariffs, but he did fold it. We do have to call it and be fair and call it what it is. He has folded in a lot of things and didn't. I mean, he talks tough. Sometimes it's funny. I'll admit, Trump is very funny. He's hilarious. But he has folded in a lot of situations. So I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say about this. Do you agree with... Screw it. Do you think Nick is crazy for saying let's pray for Iran? Do you agree with that? Do you think he's crazy? Do you think he's a traitor? Do you think that's not being America first? Let me know what you think in this comment section. I'm out of here. Peace.